Yeah.
Welcome everybody. My name is Matt Russell. I am the president of the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. Thanks for coming to our August meeting at the Space Foundation here. I wanted to go over just a brief synopsis of what we're going to be doing tonight. After I get through my little spiel here, Cliff Kotnik is going to be giving a presentation on exoplanets and how amateurs can contribute to helping science. We're going to have a break. We're going to have, and after that, we're going to have a What's Up by a rock star right here, Mr. Outreach guy, Dave Warner. Right? What's up today? Yeah. All right. We'll talk about some committee items. We'll probably make mention of a club star party that we have coming up, September Skies. Mr. Scott Donnell is here going to be talking about CSAS elections. If you can believe it, the September special meeting is right around the corner. We're going to talk then about outreach reports and what this guy and everybody else has been doing for the last month. And then we're going to adjourn at about 8:30. We have to be kind of out of here by then. We'd like to thank the Space Foundation for allowing to use this facility once a month. So we give it up for the Space Foundation. I kind of also like to introduce kind of our board of directors, trustees, and other folks that manage committees and whatnot. First is our vice president. That's Jim Earl right there. You want to raise your hand? I do not see our treasurer here this evening. Fred Goodman is ill. He is not here. So Floyd Glick, who is also one of our trustees, is filling in for the secretary position this evening. Our member at large, Dave Warner. We have the social and public relations director, George White. Exactly. We have Floyd Glick and Scott Donnell right here, are our trustees. Yay! She was somewhere. Where did Vicki go? Here she is, right there. Vicki Kisman, librarian, and our webmaster over here that handles all of our live streaming for the event, Stephen Pliego. Is that right? Yeah.
Yay!
I'd really like to thank all of you that showed up for our summer picnic. I was unable to attend because I was out of town for 3 weeks. I heard it was an incredibly good event with really good numbers. George might make mention of that. One specific event, outreach event that I took notice when I was gone was the Bueller State Park event. They had what, 300 some folks show up?
They lost count at 350.
They lost count at 350. I mean, that's ridiculously awesome. One of the things that this has started to get my attention, I mentioned it back in I think the January or February meeting. We are coming up on this special meeting that we have next month. It's maybe really start thinking again about bylaws and some of the changes that we need to make to the bylaws. Not drastic changes, but we need to make these bylaws that are readable and professional for entities that perhaps could donate us funds for our long-term planning needs. So expect to hear about that more in the next couple of months now that some of this other stuff is kind of simmered down. We have put up an attendance sheet at the back. I think it's at the back of the room.
It's going around.
It's over there somewhere. Oh, it's right here now? Okay. Please fill that out. We also have some prospective member cards for those of you that have never been here before, so that we can reach out to you again and see how we did at this meeting and see if we can get you to become a member or talk to you more about what your interests are. So what I'd like to do now is, before we get started with our featured presentation, is I would like to see a show of hands of those who are new here, who have never been here before, if you would take a minute to just stand up, introduce yourself, so that we can get to know you in a certain way, and perhaps what your interests are in astronomy, and what brought you here. Go ahead.
Website on exoplanets.
Exoplanets. What's your name?
Jim.
Jim.
Jim Freeman.
Jim, what's your interest in astronomy?
Boy, you're assuming I have an interest.
Am I assuming too much?
I'm here. Well, exoplanet. I mean, you guys apparently are just, this is so blasé, but I remember when I was growing in elementary school, there was just one solar system. And there was only maybe at most 9 planets and very few moons, and the concept of something out beyond that was Zippo. And so I think it's really exciting. We're living in exciting times. I want to hang out with people who make it happen.
Right on. Yes.
I'm J.D. Brawley. I joined last month, so I made it a picnic. I was active in astronomy from 2006 to 2012, and my job and relocation to Colorado kept me away for 6 years, and now I'm starting again. I'm interested in astrophotography. I like star parties, and I have a solar scope that's back at the manufacturer to see what's wrong with it right now. So I'm kind of interested in the sun also.
Right on. Where's Pat?
Okay.
There he is.
My name is Pat Pivot. I'm interested in astronomy. I have been for a long time, but I haven't done anything other than one. And I figured you guys might get me a little bit better and show me how I can use the scope and make it work.
There you go. Definitely do that. I saw another hand. Yep.
Tom, Zeph. I've had buddies who've been astronomers before, and went out a couple weeks ago and saw the planets arrayed and bought a telescope, and so it's here to learn more about astronomy.
Right on.
I'm Dr. Brian Kloppenberg. I'm an astrophysicist. I actually just moved here to Colorado Springs about 2 months ago. My colleague here, Tom Mulligan, he said, "Hey, you should come here and check it out. These guys are a really good group of people." So
right on.
I actually don't do astronomy professionally anymore. I work for the DOT doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But I have an interest in high resolution imaging. If you've seen any of my work, it would have been from the 2009 through 2011 eclipse of solar Rygie. I took the images of the system when it was going through eclipse. And I'm just here to find out what you guys do and hopefully join up early.
Right on. Right on. Remember, go ahead.
I'm not really new. I'm renewed. My wife and I first joined back in 1992 during the Hale-Bopp stuff, and our membership was sometime in the early 2000s. I don't remember exactly when. I just renewed again over the weekend.
Right on.
I lost my wife a year ago, so I'm by myself now. But I wanted to get back into some of the things I used to do and get the old C8 out and the tripod and dust it off.
Cool. Great. Yep. Great. Anybody else? All right. Well, if you guys would, if you don't see, or you can speak with Floyd. He's right up here at the front of the hall here with a cool black briefcase. At the break, if you wouldn't mind filling out that form, we would really appreciate it, so we can reach out to you in the future to make sure that we're doing things okay. So, Eric, would you like to announce the speaker?
Tonight we'll be having Cliff Kotnik with his presentation, Exoplanets, Amateurs Can Contribute.
Good evening. Before I start, I think I need to define exoplanet. It's real simple. It stands for exosolar planet. It means a planet around a star that's not our sun. So today, astronomers are closing in on 4,000 confirmed exoplanets, and the belief is that they're more numerous than stars. So 100 billion plus in the Milky Way. So before I get into exoplanets, I need to do some background. So personally, I started out as a super interested teenager, and then I put it on the back burner. And about 6 years ago, I decided to jump back in. So I became a lifetime member of this organization, and I decided that I wanted an observatory. So I have a piece of property up in Teller County, and I don't know, is Aiden here? There's a super smart teenager that comes, Aiden Janney. His dad built my observatory. So this is a picture of my observatory, roll-off roof, halfway between fluorescent divide. I've got a 14-inch Celestron scope in there. So I started out, next slide, doing astrophotos with a DSLR attached to the scope. So Pleiades, next. We're going to go through these real fast. Lunar eclipse, next. Then I got a CCD camera, M31, next. So then pinwheel, next. And this was a blast. I was just having the time of my life, figuring out everything that had changed in the 40 years I've been absent from astronomy. Next. And then I ran into this organization. How many people are a member of American Association of Variable Star Observers? There's a few, right? I got started with this, and all of a sudden, although the astrophotography was fantastic, this really hit a sweet spot. And I think it was two things. The first thing was that I started to feel like I was contributing to science. So today the buzzword is citizen scientist. The other thing is this organization will give you training for next to nothing. And as soon as I signed up in 2015, I got an email, hey, what do you want to do? We've got a mentor. And I had a personal mentor, there's courses, it's just fantastic. So this organization started in 1911. And you would think that some organization that old might be old and stodgy and kind of backward, but they are really up to date with all the technology they have. So if you're at all interested, this November they're having their fall meeting in Flagstaff. The meetings will be held at the Lowell Observatory. So check it out. Next. So why would you study variable stars? This is sort of the family tree. I obviously am not going to go into that in 35 minutes. But the idea is that as you study variable stars, you're starting to understand the evolution of stars from the early stage when they're variable because they've got a protoplanetary disk around them, to the later stages when they begin to change age. Next. So here's an example that I pulled from the AAVSO database. So this is Julian date on the horizontal axis, about a year's worth of data. The vertical axis is the brightness in magnitudes, right? So bigger number magnitudes are dimmer. So this one is borderline visual star, visual naked eye star. These, except for these couple of green guys, are all visual. So somebody had binoculars, small telescope, and they were visually estimating the magnitude. And you can see this star goes through 1.5 to 2 magnitude swings in a cycle that's sort of periodic, but not quite. Next. Now the great thing about the AVSO is having so long a history. Here is the same star starting in 1945. And what you see is a whole different sort of periodicity to it. So this star is actually a yellow giant in the later stages of life, and it's pulsating. And it's of a type called RV Tauri's type star. It's kind of a cousin of the Cepheid variable you hear about used for distance measurements. So it's just a fantastic way to begin to understand astrophysics at an amateur level. So, okay, so how do you go about measuring a star? This is an image. The white dots, of course, are stars. And if you wanted to measure the star in the center, or T1, the way you would approach it is you would find other stars around it that are reasonably close to it in magnitude, for which you already know an accurate magnitude. And then you would compare them. Now, I'm here setting up with a piece of computer software, but the same principle applies if you were looking through the eyepiece. So if you really don't like silicon, you like to put your eyeball to the telescope, you still can contribute in this way. But the way it's performed is a piece of software will take and examine the region around each one of these stars. So in the upper right, I've put a blow-up of the star. So what you see is the image of the star, which is kind of a dome-shaped. And the software can add up all of the pixel units in the center around that star. So it'll get the flux from the star, but it also gets what? The sky, which is variable depending upon the moon's up or not, how clear it is, how much background city lights you have. And so what it does is it takes a donut away from the star, measures all of the pixel counts there, and subtracts the sky background in that way. And it uses that in this comparison. So that's the basic differential photometry that you would perform with a DSLR or with a CCD camera if you're doing it electronically. Next. So then professional astronomers will get with the AADSO and say, hey, we are going to study something. This set of stars, this star, we really would like to have observations like this at this frequency for this time period. So I don't know if you guys heard in the Astro Press a couple years ago about Tabby's star, or you might have heard alien megastructures. Anybody hear that? Yeah. So they envisioned, you know, it got all blown up. There's a Dyson sphere and aliens are, I don't know. Well, what really happened was the Kepler spacecraft took very detailed, very frequent photometric measurements of a region in the sky, and the public, citizen scientists, were examining that, and professionals, and they found one star. Kepler was really looking for exoplanets. They found a star, it didn't look anything like an exoplanet, but it had a very weird light curve, right? So you remember, light curve is magnitude over time. Well, it was varying in some kind of bizarre way, and this was a main sequence star. And it kind of looked almost like it was an early stage star with a protoplanetary disk around it. So Tabitha Boyajian, I think her name is the principal astronomer working on this. They came up with a program and they asked for observations, and I became part of that program, and I did that digital photometry. What they were doing is they wanted to look at this thing, and as it started to do one of its crazy gyrations, they wanted the amateurs to alert the professionals who could then crank up all the expensive high-powered telescopes. And so you really feel like you're part of a project when you get involved in these sorts of things. So that's kind of how I made the transition from astrophotography to this kind of work. Okay, exoplanets, remember that was back at the beginning? So the most common way that astronomers can detect an exoplanet is when the orbit of the planet is aligned with our line of sight. So that the planet, like this example, here's Mercury passing across our sun in time lapse. So you can imagine if you happen to be many, many light years away from our sun when this happened, as Mercury started across the sun, you wouldn't see the disk of the sun from gazillions light years away. You would just see the point source. You could measure how bright it was. And as the planet began to cross, it would dim ever so slightly. So that's called the transit method. And that's how, how the majority of exoplanets are detected. And that's how all the amateurs that I'm aware of detect. So next. So after I joined the AAVSO, I had the good fortune of running into Dennis Conti. I actually ran into him at an astrophotography conference. And he was trying to get astrophotographers to go look at exoplanets. And I realized that he had a fantastic website put together. So I'm not sure if you can, I think you can read it, astrodennis.com. He's got a whole bunch of free material. You're welcome to download it. And he tells you what you need to do to be able to observe exoplanets. He also is teaching an AAVSO course this fall, starting this October. So members and non-members are able to sign up for that course. It's, I remember, $60.
That's like $25 for members and maybe $50 for them.
And it's all online, but Dennis has the absolute best AAVSO course I've ever taken. And I've taken a bunch. So I highly recommend that if you're at all interested. Thanks. Okay. So after I talked to Dennis, I started looking around. I realized that there were a whole bunch of known exoplanets from typically ground-based surveys, but at this point Kepler was also producing. There's one called HAT, stands for Hungarian Made Automated Telescope Survey or something. They had discovered this one, and the period of this planet is known. So you can predict on a given night whether this planet would go in transit. So after I got some practice, I set up and I took this. So this is my light curve. So this is the fractions of a day across the horizontal axis. The vertical axis isn't magnitude, it's relative flux. So typically for an exoplanet, you're not trying to measure the precise magnitude so much as how deep the dip is. So you can kind of think of this top one as this is the star, and as the exoplanet begins to cross at this predicted ingress, it starts to dip. And it comes down a little bit gradually because the edge of the star, the limb, doesn't appear to us as bright as the center. So as it begins to cross, it kind of comes up gradually, and then it's kind of flat bottomed. So here's a planet, about twice, a little less than twice the size of Jupiter, going around a star about as massive as the sun. It's 1,000 light years away. And I could measure that. And that just, it was like you were saying about exoplanets, it just was amazing that I could do that. I could, quote, see this planet. So that really hooked me, and that's how I started working on this. So this top one is the raw light curve. The one below it is a model. So it's modeling based on the size of the planet and the size of the star, doing some adjustments. And then down below are the flux from those comparison stars. So that's what a typical night's run might look like. A little simple. So there are a number of ongoing ground-based surveys, and I hooked up with one of them. Here is a picture of they have 2 survey cameras. Here's the specs. So they got a high-priced mount, they got a CCD camera, but look at the lens. It's an 80mm f1.9. You guys probably got better lenses on all your DSLRs, right? So what they do is they simply repeatedly image the sky and try to get as many repeats as they can. That's why it's a survey. So they got a northern hemisphere, a southern hemisphere, and then they run those through all sorts of computer algorithms looking for a signal that it would represent the right kind of depth around a star as you might find from an exoplanet. So I hooked up with these. These guys have taken the citizen scientists, or the pro-am, if you will, professional amateur collaboration to the T. They have a whole process. They have ways to submit your data. They have websites you can go to find your predictions. They have a place you sign up to say, I'm going to observe this tonight, so they don't get 3 people trying to do the same thing on the same night. It's really amazing. You just feel like you're part of this super team. Next. And this satellite, you might have heard of NASA's Transiting Exoplanet Satellite, TESS. It's successfully launched. It's collecting data, and they're going to begin doing what I described for KELT. Only they got some big advantages. It's like they got 4 KELT cameras on this spacecraft. And of course, the seeing is fantastic, right? Because there's no atmosphere, no clouds. So this is up there, and they are going to work kind of side by side with KELT, but it's really the same thing from the amateur standpoint. It's just a whole nother notch up in terms of quality. Next. So what's the amateur doing? So here's the idea. If I have an 80mm lens or thereabouts, and I'm imaging something, I'm going to have a pixel on that camera that's so big that it might not just be one star. It might be a bright star and 2 dim ones hitting the same pixel. Or if you remember the circles and donuts I showed you, the inner circle is called the aperture. The aperture that TESS or KELT uses is big enough that there's a bunch of stars. So they find what they call candidates, and you could then go about trying to figure out if the particular star that they think has the exoplanet is in fact the correct one. It might actually be, next, something else going on. Whoops, I'm out of order. Can you go one forward? Lost it. Another one? I'm going to ask you to go back. Sorry. So it might be that what you really are looking at is an exoplanet with a nice bucket shape. It might be a V shape, and it might actually be an eclipsing binary. Or it might be that there's an eclipsing binary next to it. And that might have a real deep eclipse, but you see a shallow eclipse when you add it with the star that you think might have the exoplanet. And you might be looking for these sorts of things. So if you have an eclipsing binary, then you might have two different color stars. So you're looking through different filters you might be able to do. So these are the sorts of things that we're trying to sift through. So could I get you to go back one more? So here is an actual observation I did for the Kelp project earlier this month. So here's the image. The reds are my comparison stars. Those are ones that I've checked out and they seem to have a constant light curve. In the middle, you can't see it, is the star that the Kelp astronomers think has an exoplanet. And my job is to check everything around it, as well as that one, to see what the light curve looks like. So next. So when I checked it, the blue is the one that they thought had the exoplanet. Guess what? Just flat, right? There's no dip there. But I checked out all of those, and I didn't put them all up here because you never see me, but here's one of the nearby ones that's got a big old V-shaped thing, probably an eclipsing binary. So this was a false positive. They take it off their list and they go on. But it's this kind of process that they go through. And when they get close, when they find that dip, then the professionals go on with very detailed spectroscopic analysis to try to measure how massive the planets are, to try to get more detail. So this has just been, to me, a fantastic way to be involved with astronomy, to use my telescope. It's really rewarding. So I would encourage you to take a look at AAVSO, to see if you want to get involved. It's a fantastic way to get educated. It's a fantastic group of people. And as you can see, there's people here with big old Dobbs, people with binoculars. You don't have to have, here's Michael Joyner, who's actually a professor at the university in Utah. So that's a college observatory. Students participate in Kelp. So there's a whole range of ways you can get involved, and you learn a whole lot about astrophysics, you learn a whole lot about imaging, a whole lot about what's going on in the night sky. So, questions? Got time for a question?
Cliff, you said that the software you use, is that also, is it a standardized software package through the organization that everybody uses, or is there a variety of different software packages you use for that?
There are a variety. There are some that are purchased. There are some that are available through AAVSO. So as a member, there's an online differential photometry program called VPHOT that is very powerful. Has a few quirks, but it really does a great job. What I would say for exoplanet work, well, so there's VPHOT, MaximDL. There's probably people that have used MaximDL. That does differential photometry. Gosh, I can't think of it more. The one that's really tuned for exoplanet work is called AstroImage J. And it is a Java-based program, runs most anywhere. It's got a bit of a learning curve. It's available without any royalty, without any charge. And Dennis Conti, I mentioned, teaches that, and on his website he'll talk about it. So for exoplanet work, that has a number of unique features. It's probably an offline discussion if you want to understand what's different, say, between Astro Image J and BFOT for exoplanets. But the software is readily available at no price or reasonable prices. Yeah.
In terms of our solar system, what size of planets are you able to detect? Like, obviously, you're not seeing Pluto things.
So
But maybe you are. I don't know.
So
Depends on the distance.
me personally,
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I can detect things to about 4 millimagnitudes, or about 0.4% of the flux change.
Okay.
So that's the limiting factor because of my scope, our turbulent air, et cetera, et cetera. The transit method in general, aside from being limited to things where the orbit is close to lined up, it is preferentially picking exoplanets that are close to their star and therefore eclipse it frequently, right? Because nobody's been running surveys for 100 years. So if you want to catch something that's got an 8-year period, you got to see multiples. And then, of course, the larger it is, the easier it is to detect. So that's sort of where.
So
that's
if you were outside of our solar system, would you be able to detect Venus?
probably not.
Okay. Jupiter?
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. The example that I showed you, HAT-P 36b, is 1.8 Jupiters in size. The star is about sun-like. And that was 20 millimagnitudes. So that was about 5 times my absolute number.
Okay. Our Jupiter would probably be tougher because it's got a 12-year.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. So we're just.
So that makes it tougher.
I don't know if you happen to understand the concept of Kepler, but Kepler, right, aside from getting rid of the Earth's atmosphere, was staring at a fixed part of Cygnus, right? And it was taken very, very rapid cadence, but yet it only ran for a few years in that initial mode. And so it was still looking, but its idea was, let me look at a sample and then see of the stars that I've sampled, how many had exoplanets.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, what does this tilt angle have to do with it? Factor that into the probabilities. And they basically said, there's planets everywhere.
There's a lot of them.
Yes?
I was wondering, can you tell if this same planet, if it depends if it's towards the edge and then towards the middle and then towards the edge, like that?
The same planet, or can I tell whether the planet is?
I suppose both.
By the shape of the trough, if you have a very good light curve, you can deduce a bit about whether it's going across the center of the star or it's in the upper, away from it towards the edge. You can do that from the shape of it. I can't. I mean, it would have to be a pretty good sized planet for me to do that, but you can get a sense of it. Yes, ma'am.
Scott and I do some photometry work, and my question is that we're typically using filters.
Uh-huh.
Do you use any filters, specific photometry filters for the exoplanet stuff that you do?
They typically want a standard filter so that the idea is you have a whole team, dozens of people contributing. We'd like to be able to compare one to the other. So typically they're looking for either the Johnson cousins, you know, a BVRI, or the Sloan. And so they're typically looking for those. But that being said, if you've got a really tough exoplanet, dim star, very shallow transit, a lot of times people will switch to just a clear so that they get the most light possible, because anytime you put the filter in there, it detracts from being able to measure. That's how these teams are set up. That's what the professionals ask these amateurs to do. That could differ with a different project. The other part, I'm not sure I came across, the other reason that you would use a filter is if you have a transit and you're not quite sure if it's the eclipse, the dip is because of a pair of stars, right, an eclipsing binary, or a planet. Stars many times in a pair will have different colors, and if you observe one eclipse and then the secondary through two different filters, you'll get a different depth in the two different filters, and that's a dead giveaway that it's two stars and not a star and a planet.
Are you in a position with what you're doing to possibly discover an exoplanet yourself? Or is it always somebody else giving you input for secondary look?
There are amateurs. We had a talk in fall of last year from a guy in AVSO that's part of doing one of these surveys. And so his take on it was where these ground-based surveys run into trouble is when they're in a very crowded field, like around the Milky Way. And he put on not, you know, scope like the 12, 14 or larger scopes that the follow-up team was using, like I use, and not the tiny, you know, short focal length things like the survey, but something in the middle. He was using that, and he was collaborating, and he discovered an exoplanet. So he was able to do the survey work with some pros' help, and then do the follow-up, and, you know, written up somewhere that he discovered an exoplanet. That's not what I'm attempting to do, but it is possible.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, before, when you showed the difference in the light curve from a binary star and an exoplanet, would it be possible to see an exoplanet orbiting one of the stars in a binary or not, since that would be two different curves?
Yeah, it happens for sure. There are exoplanets, circumbinary exoplanets, I think they're calling them. But Kepler, what they found was as Kepler got going and they started running their math, they found that there were ways to analyze those light curves to detect more than one planet orbiting. They figured out that they could determine that when they're orbiting binaries. Now, what I'm doing is like the survey is stage one. What we're doing is stage two. After that, what you're going to do is you're going to go to a professional observatory, and you're going to start looking at the spectrum in gory detail and looking at the tiny Doppler shift. And that's where you're going to be able to make a much better assessment of what's going on. So the Doppler shift, imagine if I have two eclipsing binaries. One's coming at me, one's going away. As one comes at me, that's where the Doppler shift comes in, because like the analogy everybody uses, the ambulance driving by you, the siren sound goes higher as it comes at you and lower as it goes away. So the light goes higher, bluer as it comes at you, and lower, redder when it goes away. So with looking at the spectrum and how the spectral lines shift, they can make very, very detailed analysis. What's going on, much more detailed than the trends.
Is that also how they detect the planets, by detecting how much the stars move? Is that also with the
Yes.
Doppler effect?
Yes. We out of time?
Yeah, a couple minutes.
So there's one weakness out of the, when you just do have spectroscopy. You can measure when the orbit isn't lined up with our line of sight, when there's no eclipse, right? But when that happens, you really don't know how big, how massive the planet is compared to the star, because you don't know if it's wobbling a little bit because it's tilted way back from you, or it's wobbling a little because it's a tiny planet and it's almost lined up. So the best of both worlds is when you have an eclipse, a transit, and you have spectroscopy. And then you can get a very good idea of the dynamics of that system.
Thank you for your presentation. Erica's going to present to you the coveted speakership mug.
I love it.
Thank you.
Before we move on in the agenda, I wanted to add a little bit to Cliff's presentation. He had mentioned the AAVSO. Scott Donnell actually got me involved with that earlier this year. And it's a really wonderful organization. The classes are awesome. Cliff is absolutely right about how schmoes like us can actually contribute. And since I became a member, I've taken an online class through them. They're very cheap. And I've done some observations. I mean, it's not a ton of them. I've got like 70 some observations done. But just 70. He's got 700. But other than that, you get a really good collaborative feel out of it. And one thing that Scott and I were talking about earlier in the year was trying to figure out some way that we could collaborate on some stuff. And Scott, do you want to mention your reach out to Andy and what we're perhaps going to be doing with him?
Right. So I attended the June meeting of the Society for Astronomical Sciences. That's another organization not unlike AAVSO, but it really focused to pro-am collaborations. And there was a paper that was presented on W. Corby and Dr. Andy Odell out of University of Arizona Flagstaff was the author. And what kind of captured my interest was, at the bottom he said, if any amateurs are interested in helping him to, contribute through observations, contact him. So Matt and I got together, thought this might be a good project, and reached out to him. So we're kind of in the process of, working through the, demonstrating that we can take good images and, calibrate them and so on. But it's kind of exciting just to even be working with a professional on a project like this.
Yeah. And we have one other really big advantage now, is we have this astrophysicist back here that can't get it. He might be able to hook us up with some liquid nitrogen.
Actually, if I get out of the BSO fairly,
yeah.
Headquarters a lot. I'm actually collaborating on their APAS survey. But BSO, I've had some of the most outstanding astronomers that I've ever seen through the past. They're absolutely work with as a professional astronomer. I've actually met several amateurs that do better work than some professionals. The great thing with amateur astronomers is they're really passionate. It's not their job, it's their passion. So that's one of the reasons why I really love the AVSO. If you go to their website, you don't have to join and become a member. They have a lot of information that's available for free. They have a visual observing guide, which you can download as a PDF, which teaches you how to go out and observe the brightness of stars just with your own eyes. And then the Citizen Sky program that I was a member of, I was part of the ABSS team. We created a DSLR photometer manual. I edited and wrote a significant portion of the first draft of that. And it teaches you how to go out and use your DSLR camera. I just set my camera on a rock up at Mount Evans and just had to take 10-second exposures. That's all I had to do. And it's actually fairly easy to do and so they make it available to members to do all the photometric instructions. A really great group of people. I would really suggest checking them out.
What's the need for liquid nitrogen?
Well, it was
Actually, ran out of beer.
No, actually, and what's his last name?
Odell.
Dr. Odell was talking about liquid nitrogen and how our amateur cameras are cooled, and we were like, we have Santa Barbara Instrument Group cameras. We don't have a liquid nitrogen option for those, so it was just kind of an
In fact, I actually had to send an email to Arnie Hendon, kind of asking him, what is Andy Odell asking us to do here? And
well, industry uses liquid nitrogen to shrink parts, to fit parts in machinery. And if you go over to Wellinghouse and think the one down the Colorado Avenue area, it's just an liquid nitrogen.
Well, basically what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to chill your camera so that it's so cold that there's just literally 0 basically what it was. So, all right, well, we need to move on to get back on schedule here. Do we have any observing reports that people would like to mention? Floyd.
The Deep Space Exploration Society had their third annual Perseid meteor shower observation, and during that, their radio telescope actually observed a source that had a notch in it from a gas cloud that intervened from the source and us. So they recorded that, and they actually got some data on that bird. And that was back 2 weeks ago. So.
Anybody else?
Stephen can pull up. In August, at the new moon, I went down to Starry Meadows with my 7-inch Mac and to try and take a picture of Mars. This is 10 days after closest approach. And so I took a 6.5 minute video with my DSLR through the 7-inch Mac at pretty reasonable magnification so that I could get at least some pixels. And through the astrophotography group, Brian has been teaching us how to do lucky imaging with that. So you run it through some software, it picks the 1,200 best frames out of that video. It was 7,000 in 6.5 minutes. And then you run it through the process through Registax. And the last step is to, enhance the image. And all of a sudden, some of the dark features jumped out. And I kind of gasped. If you go to the next picture, it's a Sky Safari image of the planet at that time. And so if you flip back and forth, they're about the same size. You can kind of see the features are kind of in the right spot. So it's kind of fun to do.
Very cool.
I think it's been like the best storm lately. So
Yeah, that's really. Well, and then I posted it to Facebook that people wanted to know what the blue was, and I said, "Well, didn't you hear there was water?" That's probably opposite.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else? No more observing reports? Okay, before we take a break, we normally do our committee reports and that sort of thing after the break. However, Brian Gibson needs to leave early this evening. He is in charge of our astrophotography group. So Brian, would you like to state what you wanted to?
Hey, yeah, my name is Brian Gibson. I host the Astro Imaging Group meeting. We meet 1 week, Tuesday following this meeting. So October 4th, I believe, is next Tuesday. And we meet at my home.
September.
Pardon?
September.
Okay. Yeah, it's Tuesday. And then it's October 2nd and then October 30th. Okay. Any case, we're kind of privileged the next couple months to be able to have a couple guest speakers. This next week we're having Robert Arnn. Is he here? Don't see him here. He has a PhD in algorithms, mathematical algorithms as it relates to artificial intelligence, and he applies a lot of it to imaging techniques and things like that. Anyway, he's not going to be doing that next week, but one of his loves is nightscapes. And so, especially if you are a kind of a beginner or you're interested in trying to take some nightscapes, it's a fantastic way to start. Next Tuesday, 6:30 at my home would be a great opportunity for you. The month following, Matt Russell has agreed to come in and actually do a presentation on his processing techniques that he uses to make his awesome images that he has been taking. If you've seen some in the past, you'll agree they're really amazing. Only because there's so many planets in the sky right now, I also would like to say the month following that, which actually I think is the 30th of October, I'm going to do a presentation on imaging planets. And the only reason I'm saying that now is right now there's a lot of planets out. You know, if you get up and you'll see Venus before as the sun goes down, you'll see Jupiter and you'll see Saturn and you see Mars. And it's an amazing time for imaging planets. If you are interested in trying that, that's kind of what I'm presenting. I'm realizing, wow, gee, that's 3 months from now. So I decided, for those that are maybe interested in trying it, I put together a little sheet of 16, thoughts on imaging planets, 16 tips, which can help you if you would like to give it a try. 16 things that would give you some input at how to image or take a better image of the planets, things to consider that have to do with the cameras or all kinds of issues. Some are quite obvious or simple, others are much more technical, but whatever might get you where you're at, something to consider. It would be a way to improve it. And I have some of those available here. If you'd like, ask me at the break, and I'll give you that sheet ahead of time. If you would like to be on our mailing list, I send out an email a couple days or ahead of time. Please see me at this break here and give me your email address, and I'll put you on that list as well for that contact information. Any questions? If not, that's it. Thank you.
Dave, you want to say something real quickly before break?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had little quickly about outreach. We had a couple of members, new visitors that came in right after the introduction, so I wanted to introduce themselves. So if you would.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm a new member. I come from Wisconsin. I'm not new to astronomy outreach. I did outreach for the local group up in Wisconsin with Chippewa Valley Astronomical Society, and I was a very active member, and I look forward to being an active member in outreach for here. So, and this is my husband.
Did you say Chippewa Valley?
Yeah.
Northwood Starfest, is that you?
Yep.
I have been there.
All right.
I've been there, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah.
Great star party.
I used to run the 14-inch under the dome there all the time.
Nice. Nice. All right, well, what we're going to do now is take a 10-minute break, so we'll come back here at 7:41.
Yeah.
Don't forget about the business card.
It's Jim. You can take a seat that would be pretty fun.
When I stare oh, you are, you stand there. All right, I think we're ready to go and get started again here. First up is our trustee, Scott Donnell. He's going to talk just a couple of minutes about upcoming election in September.
All right, very good. So we have every year, we elect our officers to serve for the following year. So this September, next month's meeting, we'll be conducting elections to elect officers that will serve from January of 2019 through December of 2019. So the job for me tonight is to solicit nominations for those positions. And then next month we'll have the election. So let me tell you what I've done so far. A couple of weeks ago, I sent out an email to all members who have a valid email address in their profile. And in that email, if you're all kind of nodding your head, go, yeah, I got it. It basically said the same thing. Nominations are open. If you want to nominate someone, feel free to do so, but please make sure that you check with that person first to know whether or not they would accept the nomination. You can also nominate yourself, and you can do that this evening at tonight's meeting. So before I do that, I will tell you who the current nominees are. May I have the envelope, please? So,
Scott, do you have a membership card somewhere? I've got a gentleman who wants to join up, but he's looking for a membership.
Oh, a membership card. Be like a
sign up. Talk to me afterwards.
One of those. Floyd's got them.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Now where was I? Exoplanets, right?
Nominations.
Okay. So the nominations, in not in order of importance, but I'll start with the member at large position. That the nominee is, if you'd stand up, please, Mr. Tom Mulliken has been. So Tom has been nominated and has accepted the nomination. Currently, there are no other nominations for member at large. Moving along, the secretary is the nominee for secretary is Vicky Kitzman.
Is she still here?
Vicky, there you are. Thank you. Vicky had previously served as member at large at one point, and now she's ramping up to the secretary position. So, and also currently no other nominees other than Vicky for that position. Jill Furman, not here tonight, is our current treasurer, and her husband, I think without her knowledge, nominated her for another well done, Jason.
I'll second that nomination so it doesn't get completely in trouble.
Thank you.
So we got Jill, and then for vice president, we've got Mr. Doug Cook right here. Doug also had served as a member at large recently, and now is also throwing his name in the hat for the vice president position. And then that leaves the president's position, and Mr. Matt Russell has been nominated for another. You have accepted. Yeah. Stand up, please.
One more.
So Matt Russell, president nominee, Doug Cook, vice president, Jill Furman, secretary, Vicky Kitzman, did I say it right? No. Jill Furman, treasurer, Vicky Kitzman, secretary, Tom Mulliken, member at large. So, given that, does anyone wish to nominate someone, maybe including yourself, for any of those positions? If so, please stand up and do so at this time. What? You like to nominate yourself?
I will. I am a past member that lapsed membership and just recently over the weekend renewed for a lifetime membership. So I want to jump back in, and I'd like to place myself in nomination for vice president. I think that's a good way to get started. I am a past president. I've probably held all the positions at one time except for treasurer. And so I was also the chairman for multiple years for our RMSS when we went from about 60 people to about 350 or 400.
Okay, so you're giving your campaign speech out right now.
I'll shut up.
And your name again is?
Gene Schermerhorn.
Gene Schermerhorn.
Schermerhorn.
Schermer.
I like old Schermer.
Schermer. Okay. Lloyd, did you get that?
I'm trying.
Okay.
Right faster.
All right. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay. Now, the nominations will remain open through the Friday night of the week. Could you bring up the calendar, please? So next month's meeting is September Tuesday, right here, September 25th. All right. So on the previous, September 25th, on the previous Friday, out here on the 21st is when the nominations will be closed. So get a hold of me. You've got that email, or just send an email to what do we call ourselves? Trustees at csastro.org. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, I'm going to bring up Mr. Alan Gorski to talk about CSAS jackets.
Go ahead, Mr.
What?
I do exist.
Yeah, I thought you were fixing my imagination.
I almost didn't make it back from another trip yesterday, but otherwise Matt would have killed me. So I have orders for jackets. Just so you know, the order forms are all online. But there was some confusion between Matt a while back. He giving me some information. So things got put on hold, and then I started traveling a lot. So there's been some discussion, and there were some suggestions about changing the back of the jacket from CSAS to CS Astro using the same fonts. So Matt and I were going back and forth, and then we figured out that no, it hadn't been decided. And so I am here to decide. I'm not going to decide.
Sell it. Sell it.
George is going to sell it.
I'm going to sell it.
Go ahead.
All right.
Because I think you suggested it, didn't you?
I did suggest it.
Yeah, he suggested it.
I want to buy it as well. I'll buy it if it's a CS Astro. The reason I suggested it is because, like Matt said, it's a branding thing. So we were CSAS for many, many years. However, times have changed. Out on social media, we are known as CS Astro. We're out on Facebook, where we recently surpassed the 2,000 follower mark, by the way, last week. And out on Twitter as well, where we were up over 1,300 as of tonight. And all these folks know us as CS Astro. It's that simple. Our website is CS Astro. And to me, the bonus is that you get Astro in your name. So anytime you're communicating with anybody out there, you use Astro, and folks know that you are some kind of an astronomical organization. It's that simple. Whereas when I started doing all this CSAS, I actually had to keep explaining it. So my recommendation was go with CS Astro. The middle one is what I was thinking. I thought it would look great, but because it is a rebranding per se, then we needed to bring it up before everybody and kind of take a vote on it.
Astro was George Jetson's dog, wasn't
If you've got the old original jacket that says CSAS, is that no longer going to be valid? Do we have to get a new one?
No.
Just everybody else. Can I speak to the old logo since you spoke to the new request? My wife came up with that logo. My wife did the design, and that's the design she came up with as a designer. And I happen to like the idea that it just says CSAS on it, because when people ask you about it, they have an interest. They want to know, what does that mean? Because it looks like an FBI jacket, only it doesn't say FBI on the back. That was our original thought when we went with the jackets with just the 4 letters. And thereby, when you have to explain it, CS is obvious, Colorado Springs, but the AS, yeah, we're an astronomical society. So we are Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. We're a group of amateur astronomers who get together, have star parties, organizations. We do public outreach and star watching for anybody in anybody's groups that they want to. So I think I like the original. A vote for that.
Yeah.
Jason, how small does the font get on the CS Astro on the back of the jackets? I know
Gonna have to scale it down a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that
Yeah, a little bit,
not gonna be accurate.
but not too much from what we saw, but I don't, the designer didn't give me a, a scale on the back of the jacket.
Okay.
I can ask him.
Right, I mean, right now
I'm
it's
saying because
center,
it's big
so-
letters,
Right.
it's easy to see on the back of the jacket,
Right.
and you're starting to add a lot. It's like a hockey jersey with 14-syllable name.
Oh, I know. Like I said, I'm not here to decide it. You guys are gonna decide it. I just want to know what to put on it so I can move forward.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine this re-imaging of this jacket, so I know what your logo is. Is that what you're gonna have on the front
It's on
of
the
the
back.
jacket?
Does anybody have a jacket in the chair?
Floyd's got his. He lives in.
Floyd's always got his.
Floyd's always got his. Sorry, Ed.
So you wanna put
on the back.
Colorado? So why not just have it all spelled out? Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. No abbreviation, they all have it. Yeah, but it's all nested and scrambled and people can't really, boom, it's not right in the face. They have to be like right up in your chest to read that.
What would be the pricing difference on something?
I think that would be a lot of letters. That's gonna be huge because
I just want to do.
Yeah, I think honestly,
I know, I got your order in there.
I think honestly, we're kind of stuck in between the first 2 options here, just to maintain consistency of everything else that we have. Is there anybody else that has anything to say regarding this?
I'll just add that, kind of go along with what George said, that all of our brochures and our business cards and everything we have is csastro. Because it's csastro.org is our website. So, when we're trying to point people to, hey, when's the next star party? Or, when's this event coming up? And we say, hey, go to our website and look at our calendar. It's csastro.org. It's not CSAS, unfortunately. So again, it goes to that branding thing of that they can recognize CS Astro, then they can also just put the .org on there and get to our website. So all of the connectivity to all of our different publicity is relates to CS Astro as it is today.
So with that in mind, shouldn't we just put csastro.org? Have that .org there.
And every jacket is a website?
Maybe even smaller.
But that's what you're implying, though.
Yes.
That's your brand. That's where people will get their.
Well, the .org is the website piece of it, but there's Facebook and Twitter. It's at CS Astro on. So
It is, but I just did a Google search on CSAS, and we're the first hit.
Yeah.
Are you pulling, you don't have the document? Okay, so we have 2 options.
There's the O candidate at 23.5.
What?
There's the O candidate at 23.5.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we have 2 options here. Number 1, we vote on the first 2 options, or number 2, we table this until our business meeting where we discuss it further.
And I can get
And he will get
have the
a
designer scale it.
scale on the back of a jacket and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion?
Uh-oh.
If we have a show of hands as to which ones how many, which one?
Gauge interest.
Yeah, just.
Okay.
Just to get a
That's
feel.
fine.
Okay, yes,
It's
let's
a
do that.
poll.
Let's do that. Option number 1, which is the top option, who favors that particular design? No. Okay, option number 2.
He's getting a feel.
It's about 50-50. So I'd say what we do is we table this until the next meeting, and then if you can get the. You will have that. We're gonna look and see which one. Alan, you also check to see if there's a price difference in the setup fees and that between those two?
Yeah. The other thing about this too is the current vendor that we've been using for a very long time is a 6 jacket minimum, but I have another vendor now that there would be no minimum, because if new members come along or anybody wants to come along and get a jacket, I can't go print a jacket, just one, without doing 6. But now we have a new vendor who's actually a customer of mine that she said there would be no minimums. So they would have the screens and everything in stock, and then if we needed a jacket, they would just order it, print it. So.
Do the GWs for us.
And you decided if I'm rated for one or the two.
That's a club decision. That's
Yeah,
the issue with that is cost. They're gonna charge, they would charge me for a whole nother setup for different. So, and right now, it's pretty much all been paid for.
And I do want to point out too, one other thing that everybody should be thinking about is the club is thinking down the road, longer term, that we're going to have a place to buy T-shirts and mugs and bumper stickers and things like that. Are we going to put CSAS on those merchandise items, or are we going to put CSAS? Or CSAS.org per se. So are we going to have commonality in what we put down there? And whatever we decide, that's what we should do for everything.
Can I throw one wrench in it? If we left it as CSAS, we could actually put our website, csastro.org, underneath it in smaller letters to match that width. And then it would look really good on a jacket. It would have everything.
Yeah,
that's
actually, I like that.
That's not a wrench. That's a fixed compromise.
I like that.
I'll draft it.
Okay. Steve, do you have something real quick?
Yeah, it just occurred to me, if we do go with CS Astro, what do people think about putting some space between the CS and the Astros? Because if you quickly glance at it, it looks like Astro.
Well, as a matter of fact, on a Google search, it tries to correct you, and it does say, did you mean Castro?
Oh,
wow. Those of us from Miami, Florida don't care.
CSAS, like Bob did.
Okay, well, what we do need to move on. So we will discuss this at our business meeting next month, because we will have time.
And as soon as I get this done, I'll post it online, or have you post it.
Okay.
All right, so start looking at it.
All right, sounds great. Next up is our outreach director talking about what's up in the night sky.
So when somebody wants to start doing these what's up starting in January, you're welcome to do it, because somebody else will need to take up that torch. So, but right now it's what's up for September 2018. So let's go to the next slide, see what's coming up. So on September 2nd, Venus is close to the Spica. So I actually looked at that last night when I was trying to look at it through a little dot to make sure it wasn't damaged, which it wasn't. So I saw a nice little star. It was Venus there, not too far away from Spica, and be a lot closer in the coming days. September 6th, there's a double shadow transit on Jupiter. We're going to be down about that time down in Starry Meadows, I hope. I'll be down there. That's actually late in the night on September 6th into September 7th. So I'm going to be looking for that on Jupiter. Hopefully Jupiter will still be up for us to see it here in Colorado Springs. And then the moon's just 1.4 degrees away from the Beehive cluster. And then on September 7th is Neptune at opposition. Again, something that I'm going to go try to see Neptune and Uranus in those nice dark skies as September sky star stereo. You'll hear me repeat that a couple times. On September 10th, we'll have our close approach. And this comet 21P, Giacobini Zinner, is at its closest approach. Right now it's at magnitude 7.5. They're anticipating that it'll get to a magnitude 6 at its closest approach. So it'll get a little bit brighter than it is right now. It's over in just down from Perseus. And it's a good spot. People are taking pictures of it right now. You guys with astrophotography, get out and take pictures of this comet. It's about the best comet that we've had in the night skies in a couple of years. So, and then on September 21st, Venus will be at its greatest illuminated, nice spelling error there. Or is it right? Illuminated, eliminated. I don't think that's right. Oh, well, whatever it is. You know, it's at its brightest. It's this great, big, beautiful crescent. It was at a half moon shape, if you will, in its phases. But it's quickly going and coming around to where it's going to go between us and the Earth. And as it does, it gets where we see less of the lit side and more of the bright side. And it gets a lot brighter as it does, because its apparent size is much larger. So that's also, that'll be exciting for us to see. And then Venus will be gone as a planet in the night sky, and it'll become a morning object thereafter for the next several months. Then we have the equinox on September 23rd. So we'll have a equinox hike at Garden of the Gods actually on the Sunday after the equinox. And I'll talk about that in the outreach talk. And then we have the full moon on September 25th. And usually I talk about all the different, I think this one's like the hunter's moon, I think. And there's a bunch of different names for the different full moons. But that full moon once again on September 25th. So next slide. So here's the path of Neptune. It's going to be right up here. Where's my 18? Right in here between these two stars, just almost halfway in between. So if you can get up there in Aquarius and Nautical Pisces, you can find where Neptune is. I'm going to be looking for that in those dark skies of September skies. Stars there. Next slide. Then you have the Comet 21P Giacobini-Zimmer, which you see we have Capella here. September 1st is right here, and it's traveling down towards Gemini. So it's going to have a close approach here with Capella in a couple of days. So something to watch out for and go look for that comet. Easy to find in the night sky, very prominent, displayed against the background of stars. Next slide has a little tail as well, from what I've been told. So that's all I have for this month for what's up in the night sky.
You got something. Dave, are you trying to compel us to look at that comment?
Yeah. Compel us. It's a very compelling argument.
Don't him on.
All right. What we're going to do here, we don't have a lot of time left. We're going to start in with our committee reports. The first one up is Tom DeClue, our Rocky Mountain Star Stare Director.
Thank you. Just briefly before I start on RMSS, as you know, last month I talked about a travel package to go down to Argentina and Chile to see the solar eclipse of the sun July next year. We needed 8. We're sold out, so we should have a good time down here. RMSS, for those that are new here, Rocky Mountain Star Stare is a big star party we put on every summer in June during the new moon. We had a very successful one this year. I'm looking for themes. Now, I got an input from Doug Cook, and I really like it. And so let me just float it out real quick. It's Sagittarius and the Milky Way. So I'd say maybe something like Sagittarius, the heart of the Milky Way. And I don't know why we hadn't thought of that one before. You know, what happens around midnight, Sagittarius and the Milky Way is like in perfect viewing position. It's the prettiest deep sky objects to look at are in Sagittarius. And so I'm thinking we should use that as the theme. Unless people have other theme ideas they want to present. I did put out a request on Facebook, and so I've got one input, and I really like it, so I'm thinking I want to go with that. So then, and Doug also gave me a couple of design ideas. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and get a theme out there, and I'll be putting out a request for designs so that we can get some designs in, and then in September, October will be, I don't know if we'll do it in the September meeting. I think probably the October meeting we'll have a vote on the design that we want to go with, that will go with the theme. So that's where we are on that. Our first kickoff meeting of the season for RMSS 2019 is scheduled for Saturday, September 15th, again at the coffee shop at the Panera Bread on North Towers, 9 a.m. If you're interested in supporting, and we always need volunteers, please be there. It is on the calendar. We've got all the meetings for RMSS, and by the way, we combined with that the land committee meeting. And so I'll be there leading the RMSS team. Jason will be there, at least for the time being. He'll be doing that. He'll be leading the land committee part of that. Two other things. I'm the RMSS chair again for 2019. However, I am looking for an RMSS assistant who would work with me and then become the lead the year after for 2020. I don't have anybody yet who's volunteered, but there may be. So if I can get a volunteer, Gene, let's talk afterwards about that. So, and then finally, as you know, Dave's done a great job as the RMSS Children's Program lead for the children's programs, and he's done it for several years. He's not doing it next year. We need a person to take on that role. That's a key role for RMSS. So think about that. Give it some thought. We really do need someone to take that on. That's it's like I said, it's a key role for RMSS. Dave has I think you've got some things written down how it works. So it's a fairly easy handoff. So think about it. We need help in that department. And that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover today. Thank you.
All right. Next, Bruce, do you have anything that you wanted to discuss with the long-term plan?
Other than the fact that we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, I've had a lot of personal stuff interfering. The next meeting is basically we're moving to the next phase, what's going on, which will be focusing on the first major project for the long-term planning committee, which is the Air Force Academy telescope. What we're going to be doing is focusing on the long-term plan of what to do, how to do, when to do, and the key to start everything is where to do. So if the first meeting is going to be consisting of true brainstorming, legitimate sites that are reasonable for actual execution of this. And we'll go from there.
Okay. Real quickly, for those of you who are not familiar with the Air Force Academy telescope, we've been donated a 24-inch Ballard and Shivens telescope from the United States Air Force Academy.
Replacement value.
A replacement value on that telescope is around $250,000. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to locate a home for this telescope. Once we get a location, Scott has agreed to help me reach out for grants. However, we can't do that until certain steps happen. So we're getting to that point. We're just not there yet. So a lot of really cool stuff in regards to that. If you want to help out in the committee, please do. And Bruce, remind me before you go, please talk to me about it.
Yeah, we need to get it on the schedule. I plan to do that very soon. I've just been overwhelmed with, life.
Happens. Next up, our last committee discussion that we're going to have. You've heard throughout the night about Starry Meadows a couple times. For those who don't know, we have 35 acres worth of property that we own down in Gardner, Colorado. And we have a committee that is specifically designed to help maintain that property, to help improve that property, and to come up with an overall vision on items that are happening down there. So our committee lead for that is Jason Furman. Would you like to?
So the short and sweet of what's change and what's important is that we've paid San Isabel money for grid electric power. We've cleared the land appropriately, and we're waiting for them to do it. Because I like stories, there's a little bit of background, so I thought it was humorous. And because the layout is a little bit different than when we saw it last time, so I just wanted to give you a little background. It's kind of funny. So anyway, a couple weeks back, I had spoken to Richard from San Isabel, and he agreed to, once I gave him the money, to meet up together down here. And that was so I could kind of help him make sure that the polls were where they were supposed to be, frankly, you know, be there to eliminate ambiguity if it should happen. Well, it turns out I received a communique from one of the community members there, Lou, said, hey, by the way, you should know they're down there working. Told you they'd work fast once you gave them money. So I went, oh, well, I guess they're doing it without me after all. No problem. As long as it's done right, there's no problem, right? I got a call from Lou, not Lou, Richard from San Isabel later, and said, so yeah, it's done. And I just want to let you know, and there's one tree you need to remove. And yeah, so by the way, in case you're not familiar, the original plan, there's a lot of trees here. So I was expecting like 8 or 9. That's why we were going to have a work day. Well, so when he said 1, I was pretty nervous. So Tom DeClue accompanied me down there. We took a chainsaw because we figured, hey, if it's right for some reason, then we might as well do it, and it saves us a work day. So we went down there with the chainsaw. Turns out that they definitely decided to go a different direction. However, we decided, Tom and I, that it appeared to benefit us greatly. And so rather than, you know, argue with it and cause problems, you know, we made the decision, you know, and we ran it by the board. We decided we were just going to say no problem and just kind of go with it. So we had the one tree, and by the way, this was the smallest tree. Okay, not really so small. It was about 32 inches around. We had a 16-inch chainsaw with us. We snapped some ropes. It was fun. So this big tree. So basically, they had to wiggle some things around. So now it's over here, and we removed this tree right there, and it goes down to this is the 4th pole right here. And I'm sure someone's got a laser pointer in this group, but you know, actually my finger gets worse. So yeah, there you go. And then from this point, see, I'm surprised there's like 15 lasers on the screen. Hell,
wait, you want a pointer or a laser?
So anyway, from here to here, it's going to be underground. They're burying it for free for us, and so we're actually going to save a lot of money. This is half the distance from here to the corner of the building than it would have been over here. So that's going to save us money on the electrical side of things. So that's good. And with only one tree that we eventually removed, by the way, we don't need a work day, at least not in the near future. So yeah, yay. So that's the story on that. I thought it was entertaining.
Did they run it over the road?
So yeah, so it's going to go from Lou's property through this gap over the road to a pole on the other side. It's still technically on our property. I saw the little stakes in the ground.
Our property line runs on that side of the road.
On that side of the road, yep. And there's space for it, so it's going to be right there. And these are 40 feet in the air, so they're pretty tall. And then, yeah, then there's just a natural gap that goes right through here. And, you know, so could be a lot worse. And it's basically done. We're just waiting for them to do it and say, hey, it's done. So maybe it'll be just as fast as before. I doubt it. You know, I don't know. Probably at least whatever the code would be. Yeah, for crossing stuff like that. Yeah.
The pedestal that you've got there, how does that sit in relation to the dirt road access to the back?
So it's going to be on the road's going to go to the west of it, right? So we will dig a trench. This is going to go underneath here. This will be underground as well. So you can drive over.
Those power poles across the road.
The building's right here.
Probably.
Yeah,
There's been
buildings
some
are-
discussion about us, instead of doing the backhoe, if the price is close, and since we're a member of the community, hiring somebody that is familiar with that area and that does this work already, did it for Lou, and just having them do it, then we don't have to worry about the logistics of getting the backhoe there, what happens if something breaks. I know we've got drivers here that we could use, but if it's close, maybe we just use the community guy and it's done. But we're not there yet, so. Anyway, that's about it.
How close are you on your budget?
Oh, we're way under.
Good. Those are great words to hear.
Isn't it? Hire me, right?
When are they running that electric line?
When?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh.
They're backed up.
That's
So,
fine.
because it's
I
big
just-
fire, they won't give me any kind of
I
date.
just hope they're
But
not gonna interrupt September skies.
yeah, it won't be, I doubt by September skies, yeah, it's not gonna happen by then. But hey, you know, they surprised me with how quick they went out to, when we gave them money to do the.
Imagine how fast they work when they get money.
Yeah, right, so who knows, you get an email tomorrow.
One of the cool things too is they're burying a lot more line than they originally had quoted.
Yeah.
So that is a huge plus. Last but not least, our outreach rock star.
Hey, Matt, can we talk about September skies?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we'll do that here as part of this, actually. Okay. So you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. I just got, I do have September up on this slide, but I want to add that it has this week as well as we're right here at our monthly meeting. Tomorrow is the Space Foundation start party. It's, 8 to 10 p.m. I want to emphasize that that we've fulfilled our obligation commitments with the Space Foundation for supporting their star parties. There's one this month and there's one next month down here. If we can support, if you want to come out, we're certainly welcome. We're always welcome here to bring our scopes out and come look. They're going to have a lot of people if it's clear skies, and it looks like it's going to be clear skies. It's nice to get out with our telescopes and look at the night skies with our telescopes when it's clear. So if you can, come out. If you can't, no big deal. You know, don't worry about it. But I have them on the schedule. I'm going to record numbers of people that come, and hopefully we'll have some volunteers. And we're helping out our folks that are kind enough to give us this room, and it's all good for everybody in the community as a result. So hope to see you there tomorrow night, 8 to 10. On the 1st of September, Mueller State Park was so happy about our meteor shower planet viewing event that we had a couple of weeks ago at Mueller State Park that they called me back the next day and said, man, that was great. Let's do it again. How about September 1st? Can you do that? So we're back. One more time to Mueller before winter hits. And so we'll go up there September 1st. That's also 8 to 10 p.m. on Saturday. So if you can come support that, we probably can expect about 100 to 150 people that come up mostly from the campgrounds, but people will drive up from Colorado Springs up to Mueller State Park. And that's a great place because I can tell you that I had a Girl Scout that was there for Mueller State Park that they came back down to Colorado Springs and they said, Mommy, how come I can't see any of the stars? And so, you know, they came out to Garden of the Gods and we talked a little bit about light pollution and how, you know, and that getting that understanding of when you go to those dark sky places, you can see a whole lot more than what they can see. And you have the attendees go to both places, then you can talk a lot more about what they can do to help prevent the light pollution and putting those protections on our lights and supporting dark skies. So Mueller's a great place to go for things like that. Then we have September Sky Star Stare. And Al, do you want to talk about that, I guess, or is it somebody else? Al, right? Because Jim and, you know, some other people said, hey, let's talk about September Sky Star Stare. What is this thing? And what are we going to do about it?
There it is. September 5th, for those that don't know, we started this when we first got the land down there. And it's pretty much just a free star party for all members of CSAS, not CSS, or CSAS, right? All you guys.
Either or.
And it runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 nights. And September, if you've never, a lot of people haven't been down there. September is by far the best month to go down there. We have the best skies. You have a chance, if you want to do it, if you stay up past midnight, you can get in a lot of your winter observing when the evening temperature is still around 40, 45 degrees and not 15 degrees, just a hit. Are we having a lunch?
Do we have leftovers?
Of course. Yeah, we do. Yeah.
We're gonna have.
There'll be lunch.
We throw in a lunch on Saturday. And, what other goodies do we have?
So we kind of want an idea of how many people are coming down, don't we? For so we know how many burgers and brats.
Yeah, that would be
Show
very
of
helpful.
hands. Who's going?
And they've got significant others.
Yeah, 20. Yeah,
All right.
that's good.
I'll make sure we have 40.
Come down, it's worth it. The days are warm. Oh, and it's early this year, happens to be when the new moon is. But so is, from what I'm hearing, the aspens are turning early this year too. So what aspens are left, I guess I should say, from the being past kind of getting crispy.
All
Okay.
All right. So if you need to know anything more about it, you can, write on the forums or send off an email. We don't have any speakers. There's no kids activity type stuff. Don't organize stuff other than bring your telescope or come out and look through somebody else's telescope.
One other thing real quick, if you don't know where it is, this is important. Go to the RMSS website, which is rmss.org, and look for directions. There you go. And there you are. It's an easy 2-hour drive from Colorado Springs.
Will there be signs up, like there is in RMSS?
No. It's a no frill star party.
Socks on the gate. Remember the old sock on the gate?
Yeah.
All right. So we can go back to the schedule and I'll go through. There's a lot on this schedule in September. Not to worry. We've got a lot of people that do outreach with the club and we divide and conquer and we get all the different things going. School's back in session. So I've got, like Thursday, I'm going out to Coronado High School to meet the new Coronado High School astronomy teacher to find out about, so I can show him again this year how to use the telescopes. One of them we donated to him last year because he's a new guy, doesn't know anything about astronomy, he's teaching it. And needs to know how to use the telescope. So I'm going out on Thursday. So teachers, the teacher that stood up at Astronomy Club and stood up astronomy classes and they expanded it to 3 classes, she's moved on to a different school, which I found out that this happens all the time in Teacherville, is that they move around to different schools. And in fact, the Ellicott Middle School, coming up after we have Rampart, Pikes Peak Community College, Rampart Range. We're back to helping this community colleges with their astronomy labs. We'll probably have some Girl Scouts coming to some of these different events and working on their badge requirements and observing and stuff. Girl Scouts are got new science badges, and so they're really engaged in wanting to work on those. We're doing a KRCC private star party. That's a couple of people. I think Bob said he's committing, and I think Bruce is helping, and Hal, maybe not.
Hal and I are presenting a combined speech for that.
Yeah.
We're looking for very, very carefully controlled because of it's basically raising money for KRCC's upper prime membership. So we can't have a flood and can't be open to the public. It really needs to be for their private donors and stuff like that.
And I probably won't
Please
help that
coordinate through Dave if you're interested in doing it.
And they only need a certain number of people and people that are really familiar with the skies. And so then the next one's Ellicott Middle School. So I go out to Horizon Middle School all the time and do events, and there was like a teacher's assistant that was there last year, and now she's a teacher at Ellicott Middle School. So now we have Ellicott Middle School we're doing a star party out there. We did last year. That person's moved on somewhere else, but he said, oh, you can, work with Melissa or whatever. So now we've got this one. So Ellicott, nice dark skies out there. Kids, great. So we have that. Come support that if you can. I send out emails. I know I already talked to Stephanie about getting her on our email list. If you'd like to get on the email distro list on, hey, here's what's coming up with outreach for the week, get on that list, and I'll send you, here's what's coming up so you can know what events that you can support. Fountain Creek Nature Center Night Sky program. We'll give a talk. I'll have to work with Bruce on if it's me or him. It's talking about a little talk indoors, and then we come out and look through telescopes. We only need a couple of telescopes for that. And then I'm excited about this one on the 15th. This is Girl Scout Start Party at Sky High Ranch. That's north of Woodland Park, and just a couple miles up 67. And we'll go up there. It's 8 to 11 p.m. I'm asking for 4 or 5 telescopes that we can get up there, and we can show about 100. I'll find out numbers in the next couple of days, but maybe 120 girls with their parents, excited to looking through their telescopes. They're going to be working on their science badges. I'm actually going up about noontime because they're doing paper rockets, and I said, oh, I can help you do paper rockets. So I'm doing paper rockets with the kids now. So I'm going up there to spend the day, and I'll probably bring a solar telescope, and they're going to be working on all of their Girl Scout space science badge requirements, and I have a lot of familiarity now working with that. And thanks, by the way, on Sunday, Stephanie helped me out with doing some of the badge requirements. We made star wheels or planispheres for the kids that they got to take home, and got those kids' activities done before the winds hit and everything. So thanks, Stephanie, for jumping right in there right away and helping us out. So then we got Pikes Peak Centennial Campus, great spot to go down there again, helping out the community college with their astronomy labs. Go back just this one slide. Then I'm going to spend the day at Horizon Middle School talking to the kids, just like I do every year. And then we'll have a star party that night. We were at Horizon Middle School last Friday, and I got 2 minutes. We talked and promoted. I said, hey, come back to the school. We'll have a star party at this school. And so hopefully we'll have more than the 5 that we've had in previous times we've tried to have a star party. Now we're starting to build an interest in, oh, you guys do star parties? You guys are CS Astro? Okay. So we're like, yeah, go to our website, csastro.org, and get all the info. You can look at our events. But we're going to be here at Horizon Middle School. Then we're at our public star party, almost our last one, getting into winter. Bear Creek Regional Park, Eastern Gardens. So that's a nice place to go and just kind of have our public star party. And then we're going to have our equinox hike at Garden of the Gods. We're still working that with Garden of the Gods, but we'll work out the who's of going to do that.
Make sure everyone knows that we need astronomers in the parking lot for that one. But if you want to do the hike, you have to sign up with Garden of the Gods Visitor Center to go through the hike. Al and myself are the leaders, the people who get them lost up in the woods, something like that for that one.
And I have the script and could do it if one of these guys can't for some reason or sick or not able to one of these days. And anybody else that wants to learn, to get the script and do one of those hikes, you can also go on the hike as a follower and see what they're doing and how they're doing it. But we do need telescopes out there to help those events. Just to finish up, and that's pretty much it until our next monthly meeting. And then just to round out the month, we have the Space Foundation again. Pikes Peak Community College, this time at the park near the downtown campus, and which is surprisingly dark for being in the middle of downtown Colorado Springs. Then we're back in Florida on fossil beds, and then the following week, getting into October, we have Horizon Middle School's wanting another star party, so we're going to build that up. One more thing before I finish, this is my last thing, is the 8th through the 20th of October, Roger Kennedy Timmy Telescope is coming from New Mexico and coming into the schools to do his Timmy Telescope solar outreach. If anybody knows any schools that are interested in having him come, it can be high school, it can be middle, elementary, libraries, museums, wherever. If anybody's interested in having him come to that school, let me know. Let them know. Let's put them together. I'll get with Roger, and I'm helping him coordinate where he's going to be for the 2 weeks that he's up here visiting. He's going to be supporting us with our Cool Science Festival and International Astronomy Day in October, as well as our Dinosaur Resource Center visit on the 20th, I think it is, and so forth. So we're going to be packed in October, but a lot of it's Roger and Linda doing their stuff. So we're going to have a lot of outreach to talk about next month too, about what's going on. So thank you, and thanks for everybody who stopped in.
Okay, that is all I had, other than one other thing. How many folks are going to Village Inn tonight? Okay, just so you know, for those of you who don't know, there is an after the meeting at Village Inn where folks just kind of get together, kind of like our pre-meeting meeting. So that was still going on. Bruce, do you have something real quick?
One quick announcement. Those people who remember Hannah West, Jim's daughter, she's president of the Astronomy Club at UC Boulder. Go figure, it's in their blood. She's looking for speakers, people who are willing to come up there and talk to her club. They do the talks in the planetarium. It's a wonderful venue to do it. These kids are eating up everything. I went up there and did an RT astronomy talk a couple months ago, and it was like sponges. They couldn't get enough. So if anyone is interested, I'm going up for another one, but she's looking for at least 3 or 4 other people to do other talks. No pressure at all. But please, if you're interested, let me know. I can get you the contact information and so forth.
Right. Real quick.
I got one question. It looks like I'm gonna go down under from the 17th of October till the end of October, coming back the day before Halloween. By down under, I mean Australia. Does anybody have any observing ideas or tips of things and places I should go while I'm there? I will not be able to take my scope. It's
What part of
too big.
Australia?
I'm gonna be going along the Gold Coast and just south of Sydney.
I know more of the southern
And a
Adelaide
little
area.
inland from there.
Our sister organization in South Australia is out of Adelaide, South Australia Astronomical Society.
Okay, I may contact you. And I hopefully will bring some stuff back from there.
Another person you might want to contact is Brian Gibson, who was our astrophotography guy. He was really good friends with Martin Pugh, who lives in Australia. He's on the west side of Australia, if I'm not mistaken, in Perth. But he might be able to give you the contact information for him. Right. Okay. All right. Well, we need to go. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.